Hey, my name is Ben. Behind me is my Cummins diesel swap 1978 Toyota FJ40. Today I'm going to take you on a tour. As I said, it's a 1978 Toyota FJ40. I'm the third owner. The original owner lived next door to the second owner, who made him promise that when he was done, that the second owner would have first dibs. Well, sure enough, he did get first dibs and he snatched it right up. I picked it up a few years ago, I guess about 4 or 5 now, and it had 81,000 original miles on the chassis. And the first thing I did was think about the previous FJ40s I'd owned and what I really wanted to do to make this one really daily drivable and unique, but keep all the original heritage. So a couple things you'll notice right away. The LED lights and all of the bulbs have all been switched over to LED. That makes it just lower maintenance, also just shows up a bit brighter. On the front end, it has a Cool Cruisers of Texas bumper, which looks pretty close to the original, but it's a little more stout. I think it's actually called the Helfer Stout, if I remember. And has a nice clean line, keeps that original look, but in a package that's just a lot more durable. In the bumper, we have a original Warn 8274, which has been pulled apart and completely rebuilt by the Warn factory. And they have put new gears, new brakes, they've repainted it and fitted with new steel cable, so it's like new condition. I've also added Baja Designs LP6s. These provide a lot more light in driving conditions where you're out in the Forest Service roads at night and you want a little more visibility. You can see the original Warn locking hubs. Of course, that Cummins logo is a little bit of an abomination for the purists, so when I'm at car shows, I will sometimes just put that in my pocket and keep that to myself. And we'll peek under the hood here in just a little bit. Mirrors are the Icon mirrors from Icon 4x4. Jonathan Ward, his team, they do a lot of pretty crazy Toyota FJ40 builds, so I used their side mirrors as well as their visors, which we'll see inside. Underneath, I went with the Old Man Emu suspension system and Bilstein shocks, and the combination rides really, really good. And with that little bit of extra space, it's about 2 inches over factory. It's able to fit 33 Summering Maxxis Razor MTs, and I've siped them for additional traction in wet and snow. The other thing you might notice is the steering has been upgraded with Toyota mini truck power steering. So it does rub a little bit on full lock. So when you take a sharp turn, you'll hear it just a little bit bumping into the pitman arm there. But the extra precision and control that the power steering gives you is worth it, in my opinion. There's a number of different ways to do power steering. That's just the way we've chose. Coming around the side, we'll look inside, but you can tell right away that while the roll bar has the factory look, it's actually a custom piece that I had done to keep the factory look, but it's a lot more stout over stock, which you'll see in the inside. So you get the factory look and feel, but you get aftermarket safety and performance. Coming around back, you'll see a couple more Baja Designs lights tucked up underneath. So those provide additional backup. I'll show those lit later. And again, all the bulbs have been swapped out for LEDs. It does have trailer brake control and 7-pin, along with a 2-inch receiver. And I'll show you when we get inside how I've hid that so it's not obvious when you're looking at it. And around the other side, you'll see the diesel symbol there. And then as we go through, there's a few other Easter eggs. I've picked up the factory Japanese diesel logo and put that on the inside there. Another Cummins logo, also magnetic, so you can pull it off. And overall, it's just very clean. When people roll up and look at it, they think that it's completely stock. They don't know what's under the hood, but I think we should take a look. This has been a complete custom job. Now you can actually buy fabricated brackets and a whole kit that you can actually drop right in. Back when my friend Donovan up at Level 10 Industries in Monroe and I put this in, those weren't an option. So we had to fabricate everything from stock. And by we, I mean him, since I have none of that skill. A couple things you'll notice right away. It does have an anti-gravity battery. It has a built-in jump start. So if you ever kill the battery, not only is it an 850 amp hour battery, so it's quite, 80 amp hour battery. So not only is it quite a beast right out of the box, it also has built-in jump pack. So you can push that and it will temporarily connect additional cells to help you self-jump. There's also a key fob inside. I'll show a bit later that you can do that. All of the fuses have been used Busman style factory OEM look and feel on a custom bracket. Again, the goal was to try to get this to look as if it was factory and in there originally. And all of the wiring harness, the computer back there for the diesel, which you'll see how we monitor that inside, all custom. This bracketry is all custom to protect the air filter mount for the oil can. You can see underneath the hood the original factory emissions control information. And then if we zoom in here, I actually had the engine plate remade and actually indicates the R2.8. I also updated the color code. So this LE41 and 309, this actually tells the exterior and interior color. So I updated the interior to brown when I changed it to brown from gray. So it's all factory correct. That kind of concludes the outside. Let's take a look at what the interior looks like. I really wanted, again, the interior to keep that factory look and feel, kind of a heritage build. And so I had custom leather done using Relicate leather, super high end. And I wanted to match the brown, the tobacco brown from the Ford King Ranch edition, because I just think the brown with the red just looks right. And so I had it custom done, and all of the stitch work matches the original with the exception of the seats. This is not the seat pattern for this year. This is actually the seat pattern from 1 year earlier, or one model earlier. I just really liked the stitch pattern. So it is correct to Toyota, not specifically correct to this model. And then you'll see as we come around in the back, I had the jump seats, which are normally smooth and don't have any stitch pattern. I had it match the front stitch pattern because, again, I just think it looked right. The red Toyota is I just like the way it looks. It's actually off of the earlier trucks, the FJ45s, but I like the way it looked. So it's just on there with double back tape, so it's easy to come off. But again, I tried to keep that heritage look and feel without modifying too much over original. The interior floor has all been covered in, it was all prepped and then covered in Line-X and then custom stitched interior panels. So there's the original layer of carpet, and then I've got a couple different sets of floor mats that have been done. So just really, one, reduce the noise, two, reduce the heat, and it just really cleans up the interior. The Tuffy security box where I've mounted the head unit also had the pad taken off and stitched to match. And then the dash pads I had pulled off and stitched to match. And Northwest Crafted Interiors in Everett, who did all the leather work, just did outstanding work. Custom shaped and did all this, and it just looks absolutely amazing in person. And then I mentioned when we were outside, the Icon window shades. These windows are not very tall, and so rather a typical shade which blocks, and you can see how little space you'd have. I went with the Icon, which are actually out of aircraft, and they're adjustable this way, so you can still see through, but it basically takes away some of the glare. What else in here? The gear shift pattern I had redone. So when we did the Toyota H55F, which is the 5-speed from later models, which pairs really nicely with the Cummins. I'm getting mid-20s miles per gallon with this setup, and it's just absolutely unbelievable. But because of the space under here, the normal shift pattern, which is down and to the right, in order to gauge both low gear and 4-wheel drive, wasn't possible. So I went to a 2-stick. So you have a 1 stick for high or low, and then 1 stick for 2 or 4-wheel drive. So you could technically do 2-wheel drive low. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could. And then I had the gear shift instructions hand done to match, so you can see the transfer case pattern actually matches that. So that was custom. And then because we put in the vintage air conditioning in place of the stock heating, and got rid of like the choke and the cigarette lighter adapter and some of those things, we had extra holes, and I didn't want to modify the dash. So what we did was we cut an additional piece of aluminum and powder coated it black to match, and did that for all the different pieces, and just put that in front of. So behind the original dash is untouched, and then the ram mount allows you to just put balls on that you can put. In this case, I use this one for my cell phone holder, but you can add additional ones if you want to put a GPS or whatever you want to do. You can just add those balls, and again, it keeps you from having to modify the dash and gives you a place to put those things. You have the heating controls here, so you have fan, location, whether you want visor, heat, vents, feet, all that good stuff, and then you have temperature here. Your hazard lights, windshield wipers, these are brushed aluminum. And then the brake controller, as I said, is nice and small. It uses one of the original holes. So again, we had to modify the dash to mount that in, but it gives you your brake controller and the ability to adjust it there. And then I just like the original older style Toyota Land Cruiser script. So we just cut the Toyota off and put this on double back tape and put it there. Coming around to the other side, a couple things. Added the diesel sticker, so again, if somebody's driving it that forget, so they see it reminded here that it's diesel. I also used the Dakota Digital gauges, but the ones you get from Dakota Digital use a different font. I don't like the font they use, so this is actually the one that you order from Icon. And again, they worked with Dakota to use a font that much more closely matches the original Toyota font. So when you glance in, if you don't notice the LCD screens right away, it looks like the stock dash cluster, and it's not obvious that it's been changed. You use the Switch Pros controls here. So this controls the front Baja designs, the rear Baja designs, passenger heat, yes, the seats are heated, driver seat, and then I need to put the sticker on, but this is actually the interior light. So there's a Baja Designs interior light there, which this switch controls. Also, on the original light, you can control it here, and again, swatched out with LED. A couple other quick things on the interior. I have the original Toyota electric winch. Obviously, this is a new one that I ordered. But it has the winch controller is in here, the original plate, and some more information, all the documentation and paperwork. I use that for storing that in, just because I like the look of the winch controller bag. Just seems like a great place to keep all the paperwork. And then I also have the work light. This is for working on your rig in the middle of the night. There's actually what looks like an AC style plug there, where this plugs in and gives you a work light, so that when you are working on your rig at night, you've got the work light to plug in. Oh, and this is where I keep the Cummins logos stored when I'm not using them. The other thing you'll notice is that the computer has its own, for the new Cummins diesel, has its own Murphy gauge. And so what I did is I put that Murphy gauge in one of the spots for the passenger vents. There's plenty of vents, don't need to keep that one. So right now it's letting you know that it needs to wait to start up because it is a diesel, and then it's ready to start. You can see it's not running there. Let's go ahead and do a start it from inside, you can hear it, and then I'll start it from outside. There it is. The check brake is on because the brake is set currently. Here you can see what it sounds like from outside, that diesel purring. The exhaust is on the passenger side. Couple other things pointed out in the rear, and then we'll take it for a drive. Fire extinguisher, obviously put a lot of money into this rig and want it to be taken care of, and so if something went wrong, I want to be able to get to that quickly. Don't have a lot of rear passengers in here. These do fold up, and so you can get quite a bit of cargo in here. But if somebody did sit back here, there are drink holders I put on the back of the Tough security box, and then I put pouches in the back of the seats when I had the custom seats done. And that really wraps up their rear of the vehicle and kind of the overall outside. I think it's about time we take it for a drive. What do you think? One thing that surprises people is how much pep it has. So sometimes I'll pull out onto the freeway and people will start to try to get around me because they just assume that it's going to be slow, but with that turbo diesel, it's got some pickup. So you'll see we get up to 60, and I'm not really pushing it very hard, but you can see I get right up to speed very easily. No issues. Very different than 2F, which is a super reliable engine, but they are heavy. They're around 900 pounds. This engine's about 600 pounds, maybe a little less. I think it's closer to 500 pounds. So quite a bit less weight on the front end, and just much more efficient. So these are about 300 pound-feet of torque. So in terms of moving this thing around, it just gets up and goes, no problem whatsoever. I don't know if you could hear the blow-off valve when the turbo spools up. It definitely makes a great sound. There was one trip I was up on the Washington Backcountry Discovery route, and I was passing a whole Subaru club. They were on the side of the road taking a break, and they saw me coming, and they were super excited just to see an FJ40 out on the trail actually being used. And so as I rolled up, I revved it up just enough for them to hear the turbo spool. And of course, they're all turbo junkies, being Subaru guys, and they all went nuts. It was amazing. But it's just, you know, the thing I love most about Land Cruisers is everyone has a Land Cruiser story. When you are hanging out, talking with folks, and pull up, go to a Cars and Coffee, or just go grab a cup of coffee, inevitably somebody comes up and they ask what year it is, and then they share their story. Their uncle had one, the guy next door, the grandfather, the dad, whatever it is, they've got a story about how someone they know used to have one of these, and the rides that they went on, or where they were, what was happening, or camping trips, or whatever it was. And that's just, you know, one of the things about owning a Land Cruiser you don't get with a lot of other rigs. There's just so much heritage, and they're instantly recognizable. They're one of those vehicles that, you know, even a lot of people who don't know about cars know this is something special.